Alright, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Now, this is an interesting one because I forgot it in the original video, part 1, rather. But I did want to bring this one up in part 2 and in this full version that I will be making. I thought the film was fine. I honestly kind of forgot it existed. I didn't really care too much for it. It isn't one that I'm really excited to pick up on physical media. I do need to go back and watch all the other Planet of the Apes films, and I'm sure I'll be into it a lot more, but I thought the visuals were beautiful. The story was intriguing, though I don't really remember it. I just thought it was fine. Like, you know, I didn't hate it, I didn't love it, I just thought it was a cool film. I thought the visual effects were really well done, and, you know, I do think it definitely, you know, it has some merit to it. I do appreciate that they are making more of these films and that they are still at a high quality, but honestly, I really forgot about this one. But it was fine, I guess, you know? If I had to give this one a score, I think I'd give it like a 5 out of 10. Not that I thought it was bad, but it wasn't one that was my favorite. I just thought it was fine. It exists, you know, whatever. I'll give it a 5 out of 10. If is the 2024 John Krasinski family comedy with Ryan Reynolds starring in it about imaginary friends called Ifs, in other words. And this was a film that I will admit I forgot to include in the original video, but I will say that I found this film to be underwhelming. I thought it was going to be a lot funnier than what I saw, but, I mean, especially because Ryan Reynolds was in it. But honestly, the humor, it just wasn't that funny. I found the film to be basically too young, in a way. It just wasn't that appealing to someone of my age. I thought it was going to be a lot funnier with Ryan Reynolds as one of the leads in the film. I thought this was going to be a, not Deadpool-style comedy, but, you know, there would definitely be some jokes in there, like he would actually give a comedic performance, but it feels like it's really toned down because of the film's plot. He still does a great job with his performance, but I honestly found the film disappointing when it was originally one of the films that I did anticipate from the trailers. There's some fun sequences in it, but I also had the feeling that the fun sequences in the trailer, they weren't really fun in the film. They were kind of over and done with, and I didn't like that. I thought it was going to be a lot better. I don't think it's terrible. I think it's great for a family audience, and I do think it has quite a bit of heart in it, which I do appreciate, but for me, I didn't enjoy it that much. I'm giving it a low score. 4.5 out of 10. That's my final score for this. Another film that I watched this year, in fact, one that I just watched, and it wasn't a film at all, it was a documentary, was Superman, the Christopher Reeve story. And this is a really heartfelt picture. What the story tells is the true life documentary of Christopher Reeve. From before his accident to after his accident. And how the Superman persona affected him and didn't affect him. In fact, it said in the film that he was kept normal by his wife, that was the reason he didn't become over the top and filled with modern actor ego, that kind of thing. His wife kept him as so-called normal, and it told a really endearing story about how he did face this tragedy of losing the ability to move, being a paraplegic, being unable to walk, but how he determined that he would walk again. He practiced day in and day out, years after totally understand why the family would endure this film. And I love the little bits with Robin Williams in there, how Robin Williams was his friend. I just thought it was a really good film. I just thought it was really endearing. And I'm honestly going to give this documentary film, I think, a 8 out of 10. I don't even know what I'd give it negatively for, so you know what? I'll give it a 10 out of 10. I just found it really... I think I'll just give this documentary film an 8 out of 10. It's a really enduring story about how to not be defined by your tragedies, but how to move on, how you can change the world through them. And I just thought it was really special what the story was told, and I really like this documentary. And I think I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10. The Wild Robot is a gorgeous movie. This is, in fact, I think one of the most beautiful animated films this year. And I have to give DreamWorks that credit. Even some of their bad movies, like Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken, look beautiful from the trailers. Or Dogman, which I don't know how to feel about it because I've never read the books, looks very inspired and very artsy and comic book-like. I really like the look of DreamWorks movies nowadays, and I think The Wild Robot is a beautiful film, not only in its visuals and its color, but also in its story. It is a story about growing up, about being a parent and letting your child learn to fly and teaching them and nourishing them and all the friends that they meet along the way. This film is based on a book, and I didn't even recognize that, I think, going into this. This is a beautiful film. My only criticism is probably the third act. I feel it's a little bit redundant, that we spend the whole third act trying to save Roz, but then she decides on her own to leave. It kind of feels a little bit pointless. I mean, yes, it's on her own terms as opposed to being kidnapped, but at the same time, it's like, I don't, know why we had to do this. I think you could have just done it a different way. But I do think it is a beautiful film. The song in this film is great, the song that they had written for this. I just think everything about this film all around is really well done. This is a really sweet, heartwarming film. I love Pedro Pascal as the fox. I think he does a great job with the role, and I really enjoyed myself seeing The Wild Robot back in September. And I think I'm going to give The Wild Robot a 8 out of 10. It is a gorgeous film and one I would love to rewatch. It is a beautiful movie, and I'm really glad that I got to see this in theaters. I think in 2024, a lot of the movies that I saw, I had the right expectations, at least up to this point of recording. But if there was one film in the month of November that disappointed me, well, there were multiple, but one of them was Red One. Now, Red One is a action comedy with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Chris Evans. And it is basically about them going and finding Santa Claus after he has been kidnapped. And I knew this movie was going to be bad. I was like, yeah, this is going to be really stupid. This isn't going to have a broad appeal. But I liked Argyle, and I love The Fall Guy, which are pretty dumb action movies. But the difference here is that I did not find this film funny. I didn't. There are some scenes that I found funny. There are some parts. In fact, in the first act of the film, I was saying to the person I was with, this is going to be really funny, or this is going to be a great movie. I'm really excited for this. By the end of the film, I'm just like, what the heck are you even doing? Let's just start off by basically saying the plot. So, the plot is as basic as it sounds, in a way. Chris Evans and The Rock get stuck together trying to save Santa Claus because Chris Evans accidentally gets Santa Claus arrested. And The Rock is, in fact, Santa Claus's guard, who protects him to make sure that things like this don't happen. But because this has happened in like 200 years, they have to go on a mission and save him. But the film doesn't just tell a normal action story about two guys fighting bad people. it throws in witchcraft for some odd reason. Like, there's the Christmas witch. There's also the fact that they have to go and basically do smock knock. I don't even know how you say it, but they have to do a game with Krampus, and you have hellhounds in here briefly. I don't even know what this movie was going for. It's just bad. I mean, there's scenes in here that I think are fun. There are parts that I think are fun, but I just think it's really bad. It's just a really bad movie. Like, this film is not funny. For a film that I thought could have been a lot funnier, with these two actors working together and working off one another, it just didn't work at all. I didn't care for the story. I thought all the witch stuff, I didn't appreciate it because, you know, I don't like films that throw in a lot of that stuff, especially with how deep they were going into it. And so, honestly, I'm going to have to give Red One, I think, a 4 out of 10. One of the films that I saw in November was Angel Studios' Bonhoeffer, and this is a really frustrating film because I think this film tells an important story about a man who went against the corruption of the church during the time of World War II. Despite that the church was being taken over by the Germans, he stood against it and proclaimed the gospel. He went and preached to people. He went and tried to help destroy Hitler. He worked against what was going on in the building called the church. He knew that there is more to God than what is being said in a building. He knew that the gospel needed to be proclaimed during this time, and he knew that there was corruption going on. And this is an important story that I think needs to be told, but this film is just bad. It's just bad. It's a really frustrating film. Because a lot of bad movies, you can say, well, oh well, just don't watch it again. You know, you can say, whatever, it exists. And with this movie, sure, I can do that, but I also feel really bad that I'm having to say this, because I think there's a place for Angel Studios. Angel Studios is a different kind of film. They go against the Hollywood system. Sure, they may put their films in theaters. Sure, they may want to make money off of them. Sure. Any movie ever made, even if people have the best intention, are going to want it to be successful. And Sound of Freedom was successful. But what was more successful than its box office was the impact it made. That's what was more important. And I think they could have had another story like that with Bonhoeffer. Maybe not on an important story that needs to change things, per se, but a wake-up call on what is happening in the church nowadays and things like that. And it's just really frustrating that this film is bad, because I think you could have made something really impactful. But even from the very beginning of the film, there are scenes that don't. There are just scenes that you should cut out. They just blow the runtime. They don't even blow the runtime, they waste the runtime. Because I'm sitting there watching this, and I'm just thinking, okay, this is interesting. I get to the end of the film, and it's just like, that's it? And it's just really, really frustrating. Because like I said, with a bad movie, like Madame Web, for example, I can forget it. I can say it exists and it's bad, and the studio should be kind of embarrassed by it. But with this, it's like I wanted it to be good. I wanted Angel Studios to be able to have this win. I wanted this film to make a huge impact. And it did make some money. It did. But it really wasn't good. And I'm not the only one saying this. Everyone I saw this with had issues with how the film was. They didn't deny that it was an important story, but they denied that it was a good film. They said that this film was really bad. And that's not what you want. Especially with a film like this. And it's just really frustrating, especially because this isn't the first time. I turned off the shift when watching it, and I've had people tell me that they don't like other Angel Studios films. They have issues with other films that they do. And it's just really frustrating. And I'm almost at the point where I want to say, Angel Studios, cancel everything you have next year and delay things. Because I'm starting to worry that they're starting to bloat the release calendar and making too many movies rather than too few important movies. it's much more impactful to make 3 movies that tell really impactful stories that are really well written and really well received about really important people than making 10 movies that are some level of. I'd rather Angel Studios would do less content than more content. Because it shouldn't be about how much they make, it should be about how much of an impact they make. And it's just really frustrating that this film could have been something big, and it just wasn't. We're not even asking for this film to get $100 million. It won't get $100 million. And I don't think it's just because of poor marketing. I think it's because it fundamentally has problems. One person that I saw this with said they got more information out of the text at the end, right before the credits. The text blurbs at the end were more impactful than a 2.5-hour long movie. That is a problem. If you get more information out of the text that you see on the screen for 2 minutes than a whole film you watch for 2 hours, I think you've got an issue. And I honestly think I'm going to give Bonhoeffer a 3 out of 10. I could give it a 4 out of 10, but honestly, this film, it just fumbles so hard. It had every reason that it should have been a good film. It was telling an important story about an important man in history, and it just fumbled it completely. This is one of the most disappointing releases of the year because I think this film really could have said something, but it struggles to even say what it's trying to say because the film just has so many obvious issues. I'm giving it a 3 out of 10. So on November 22nd, I saw Wicked, and this film was great. Actually, I didn't see it the 22nd, I saw it the day after, but nonetheless, Wicked is a great movie. It is gorgeous in terms of the song composition and the musical numbers. They're so much fun to listen to. My favorite has been What Is This Feeling? I've listened to that on loop at least once. All the songs, though, have huge highlights to them. The actresses and everyone else in the film, the 2 main leads especially, do a great job of performing their characters and the musical numbers. This film is so much fun. I really enjoyed Wicked. I honestly think that if we keep getting musicals like this, it could be a resurgence for big-budget Hollywood musicals. And I would love that, because I think it's time that we have a few new ones. Because I love this movie. I thought it was great. I have a few little nitpicks. For one, I do think that I agree with the criticism that the world is a little bit too dull and not vibrant enough. Mainly what I mean by that is that the colors, while they're nice, there aren't enough scenes where they really pop out and everything's like all bright and glossy. Not that it needs to be, but it feels like for the world of Wizard of Oz, it could be a little bit brighter and more fancy. I also feel like that the last song, Defying Gravity, focuses on doing the song over the plot. Like, I understand what's going on, it's not an issue there, but they'll be running away from the bad guys, and then they'll stop because they're getting nowhere. They're not getting chased. They'll stop at the scene, get chased, stop at the scene, chase until the finale of it. And I just kind of wish that it had been done differently. I think it's a really great film. Like I said, I think this is a wonderful movie. And I can't wait for Wicked Part 2, recently retitled to Wicked for Good. But those were some little nitpicks that I had. But I really like the performances. I really like the music. I really like the songs. Especially What Is This Feeling? I just thought it was a really fun film and a really good time at the cinema. And I'm really glad that I got to see this in theaters. So I am officially going to give Wicked, I think, a 9.5 out of 10. A wonderful film with some little flaws, but I found it really enjoyable, with beautiful songs, great characters, great acting, and I just really enjoyed myself. Gladiator II was one of those films that was on my, yeah, I want to go see that in theaters list. It wasn't definitely on top. I didn't grow up in the 2000s, really, with Gladiator. I saw it when I was much older. But I do know that Gladiator is a great film. It has a great legacy to it. And very clearly, it is not a film that sets up the option of a sequel. This film, however, doesn't care and is willing to find a loophole to make a sequel happen. And you know what I say? Fine, go ahead and try it. I have confidence that Ridley Scott can do a good job because, well, he did the first Gladiator film, so it wasn't like some random guy was brought in to do a sequel. It was the guy who made the original. But this film is terrible. It's way too graphic. The ways it connects to the first film don't make a lot of sense and don't need to be there. There's too many villains and too few villains at the same time. The film is anticlimactic. There's some logic that has to be thrown out the window in order to enjoy some of the moments. There's creepy monkeys in this film, which don't even make sense. It's a terrible film. I will say this. I did like the opening credits sequence. I did like that. I did think that was cool with like the drawings and the colors and stuff. I thought that was fine. I thought it was a creative idea, a cool way to start the second Gladiator film. That was like cool. Artsy. I like that. But let me just put into a couple sentences what the issue is with this film. In the first film, Maximus Aurelius is wanting to be free. And he ends up coming home to his wife having been murdered by what he has said. Accidentally, he has caused the murder of his wife and child. And he wants to take revenge, specifically for their plot scheme murder. How does Gladiator II handle this concept of someone losing a loved one and taking revenge? Well, a random army comes to their village, and they happen to shoot his wife. And then he's like, okay, I'm gonna go on a revenge spree. And the funny thing is, I watched another review of this film, and I didn't even notice this. The actor plays it as if it isn't a big deal on the ship. Like, he hurts, it means a lot to him, but they very much brush it off as if almost, like, it didn't matter that much. This film is just bad. Like, everything that the first Gladiator did right, this film does wrong. Yes, it has beautiful cinematography. Yes, there are some cool fight scenes. But oh boy, the villains are disappointing. The trailer set up this really crazy guy that's just like screaming and whatever. And oh, he's gonna be the villain of the film. But he has a brother. And there's this plot where he wants to kill his brother. And then he goes to kill his brother. And then what happens after he kills his brother? Well, then he's killed. And who's the real villain of the story? Denzel Washington. And what do they have at the end of the film? Not an epic war where there's guns, or they don't have guns at that time, but where there's swords and bows. All the people from the hero's village come over. The hero has a fight with Denzel Washington's character, and, you know, ends up beheading him. And it's just like, okay, we're gonna make peace and work together and whatever. And it's just like, I came here for an epic final battle. I came here for an epic war. I came here for Gladiator. Not this really dumb, stupid film. And another thing that I have to critique is the amount of violence in this film. Look, the first Gladiator film is bloody. Yes, it is. But the second film makes it a point where, for example, when the brother is killing his brother, Denzel Washington comes in to help and ends up sawing at his neck even though he is dead over and over again. And I'm disturbed that I even have to say this, but I don't like that aspect. I don't. It's just unneeded violence. I didn't need to see that. You killed the guy. Okay, move on. I didn't like this film at all. I really didn't. I'm giving it a 4 out of 10. Gladiator II is a bad movie. There's a few things I like about it, But I could very easily be pushed to put this even lower, because this film is just awful. What can I say that I haven't already said? I really like Mufasa Lion. I wasn't sure how to feel about it because I saw both negative and positive reviews coming out, but I really, really did enjoy this film. It's really fun with the beautiful animation and the story that they're doing. Once again, I appreciate the originality. Yes, we all know the story of the Lion King and we know where this all ends up, but I like that they didn't just remake the Lion King just to surprise. So I want them to, because I really like that movie. I appreciated that that wasn't their first decision, that wasn't their first idea to get money with this. They decided to tell an original story, they decided to bring a award-winning director, and I think it really helps the film. The film definitely has scenes that look like they were picked by a certain director. Like, there's some really cool shots in this film. I like the music once again, apart from the song Bye Bye and some of the other ones at the beginning. I think this film honestly struggles at the beginning, but once it gets going, it gets better. I don't like all the interventions with components, but I think those are unneeded and anything. But you know, I think it's just a really, really fun film. I think it's just really fun family entertainment. Once again, I really enjoy the song Tell Me What to Do. I just enjoy all the songs in this film, mostly, and I enjoy the visual effects, and Namely Down Under pointed out something, that everything in this film is not real. These are not real lions, these are not real environments, they were inspired by real environments, but this was all generated. The wonder the budget is so high, because, like, this film is top-notch visual effects. And even if you don't like the story of the music, you have to give some credit because the visual effects work is stunning. And I just really enjoyed it. I think it's a really fun film. I think it's got great moments. I think it's got some funny humor, especially with Tonga and Strong and Troy. I think it's very funny, especially the line where Mufasa tells him, make sure you listen. That's one of those guys that they don't listen to the girl when she's trying to say something. So I thought that humor was really funny. I just thought it was a wonderful film. It was beautiful. It was breathtaking. It was really fun. I appreciate that Disney took the criticism of the characters not being emotive and they tried to make them more emotive in this film. I'd love them to go ahead and remaster the original 2019 Lion King film. When I say original, I mean, you know, the remake, but I would like them to go back and redo the visual effects on that, but obviously there's no reason to because they did get the money already. But no, once again, to put it simply, I really like this film, and I'm really happy that I gave it a chance and didn't listen to a lot of the negative reviews. And so I'm going to give Mufasa the Lion King, once again, an 8 out of 10. Sonic the Hedgehog 3 is an extremely fun film. I had a great theater experience going and seeing this with a bunch of my friends, and honestly, if I had to just rate this film on a fun factor, I would say it was amazing. The visual effects were beautiful, the music was epic, the action was, like, honestly, I think this is one of the most fun films of last year. This and Deadpool and Wolverine, I would say, are the two films to watch if you want to have an extremely fun time. This film was gorgeous. I loved how fun and how big the action scenes were. I liked Keanu Reeves' shadow. I do have a criticism that he sounded too much like Keanu Reeves. That isn't his fault, that's just, I think, on audio. But I really, really it was so much fun. I really like the use of the song that we learned. I know it's one of the characters from the Sonic games, and I like that they finally do that. But I do have one criticism. This film goes way too comedic at the end. Or through the whole film. Like, for example, Robotnik and his grandpa, Gerald, they have a little scene where they dance through the and then there's a room where getting sent up and down. And I'm like, we're about to deal with the end of the world, and we're dealing with this guy who basically lost his girlfriend, and the whole film is basically a big joke. And it's the same issue I have with the subject matter is not I'm fine with this film having fine with it. It's a PG Sonic film. It's not going to be Dark Knight. It's not going to be actually in a way. But I do think the film works. I do think there are parts quite good. I do wish that Tom had died, to be honest. Because I wanted there to be some loss. And sure, you could say, oh, well, Robotnik and Shadow died. Yeah, not really. I mean, we even, you know, if you look online, Jim Carrey said that he wants to come back for Sonic 4. So it's like, come on, guys, just, like, have an endpoint. I honestly think this should have been the end of the trilogy, and then they do almost a reboot for the feature films. Not a reboot, but, like, you got a different villain, maybe have a different director. But I feel like Paramount's gonna just drive this thing into the ground. They're gonna make as many of these as they can. But, look, going back to the positives, I think it was a really fun film. I think this film did a good job fixing some of the flaws of the first two films with the useless character subplots. I did like the concept of being able to disguise as another person. I'll admit, I do think that creates plot issues because, well, they're probably just going to be able to do that in any Sonic film. You know, that's kind of a cop-out. But I did really enjoy the movie. Like I said, I really enjoyed it. I really did. I think this is an amazing film. It's so much fun. It is gorgeous. Like, let me just say again, the glass shatter scene in the trailer is epic. Like, that, the amount of detail in just the simple thing of Shadow breaking a window is awesome. This film is so much fun. I love this movie. It is so much fun. And I, honestly, on that alone, it is great. It is great. I give this film honestly 8 out of 10 because I had so much fun. It was such a fun theater experience. It is a beautiful, really fun, action-packed adventure. So I'm giving Sonic the Hedgehog 3 an 8 out of 10.